and then you made 3 more statements, and then that was lost. So if you want specific answers, you need to ask very specific questions.
Why didn't you investigate the scene properly?
I did. You
measured
failed
the
to
skid.
use
Hold on, you asked her, hold on.
All right,
You
asked her
Mr.
the
Cheshire, go ahead and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony given in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, first witness is officially sworn in the bench trial, and we're off. All right, so do you have any questions that you've thought of before we jump into your trial?
No, sir.
All right, so as you changed your mind earlier and agreed to allow me to make the guilty innocent decision, this will be a bench trial. Ms. Tony is here representing the state. Ms. Tony, any housekeeping before we get going?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So do you wish to do any opening statements, or do you just wish to call your first witness? Whatever you prefer is fine.
I'll just call my first witness.
Okay, all right.
The state calls Braden James.
Mr. James, if you'll come on up here, and Ms. Tony's going to swear you in. I'm going to grab something from there.
Mr. James, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State and spell your name for the record, please.
Braden.
Mr. James, were you in an accident?
He's very, just let me get him situated. So you're very soft-spoken, young man. If you'll grab that microphone, and let's make sure that green light on the top is on, and pull it closer.
I turned it over for you.
All right, and then if you just lean in, hold on, I got to turn mine on. If you just lean in, it'll get really loud. So if you'll just do that for me, and just state your name again so Ms. Donna can get it down.
Is it on?
Braden.
And last name?
Robinson.
Floor's yours.
Were you in an accident on May 26, 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Generally, where was that accident?
Don't recall the name. The road next to the hospital.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm handing you a document, I'm sorry for the size, but that's been marked as State's Exhibit A. And that's a map of the area generally around the hospital. Do the roads on that map, specifically Graff Road and Camp Northern Road, are those laid out in a fair and accurate way as they were on the day of your accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I tender State's Exhibit A?
Any objection, Mr. Cheshire, to me using that map to make my decision in your case?
No, sir.
Okay, then State's Exhibit 1 is tendered and admitted without objection. And Ms. Tony, you'll, after the trial's over, I'll give you back the map, so if you'll email a copy, actually, if you'll email a copy to Ms. Donna and Ms. Catherine, digital.
Okay, is it okay if I have the witness step down and
Yes.
sort of point to the map?
Yes, with no jury, we can move around a little bit more freely. So,
I'm just gonna give you this to use as a pointer.
can you see it okay, Mr. Cheshire? Okay.
Okay, can you show the judge where you were driving prior to the accident on May 26th?
I had pulled off this road right here, and I came down and met him right here.
So you were going north on Camp Northern Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you show me where you first saw the defendant, Ronnie Cheshire, that day?
Right here on Giraffe Street at the stop sign.
And so he was at the stop sign on Graff. Did you see him stop on that road?
Yes.
And what happened after you saw Mr. Cheshire stop?
After I came around, I saw him pull out right in front of me and I hit him in the back left rear of his truck.
What happened next?
It hit him and it threw him into a tree and he rolled into a parking lot over the sign.
Okay, you can take the stand again. Thank you for that. I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit B. This is a photograph of Graff Street with Camp Northern running in front of it. Is that a fair and accurate representation of those roads on the day of your accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at the end of Graff Street, is there a stop sign there?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there a stop sign there on the day of the accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I tender State's Exhibit B?
Do you have any objection to me using that photograph in making my decision?
None at all.
Okay, and for the record purposes, Ms. Tony has handed you a copy of the exhibit. All right, it is State's Exhibit B is tendered and admitted without objection.
Was your vehicle damaged in the accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe the damage briefly?
The whole front end was totaled. The hood was bent up. The fender, one of my tie rods were broke, they're both pointing outwards. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, and when you were traveling north on Camp Northern Road, did you have a stop sign?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and were you charged on the day of the accident?
No.
Was Mr. Cheshire charged?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the accident happen in Spalding County?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, so Mr. Robinson, hold on just one second. Mr. Cheshire, if you wish to ask any questions of Mr. Robinson, if you'll just make certain to lean into your microphone and ask your questions nice and loud and slow, give him an opportunity to answer. Sometimes in this moment, people get a little excited and they talk over each other. And if you do, I'll stop you and get you through sets, okay? Any questions for me before you start asking any questions?
Sir.
All right, then the floor is yours to ask any questions you deem appropriate.
How fast were you driving in that 35-mile-an-hour zone?
At least 40.
Can I show some of the pictures that I have?
Yes, what we'll need to do is get them marked. How many pictures do you have, and do you intend on tendering all of them?
Probably so.
Okay, and how many pictures are there altogether?
There's 8, I think.
Okay, give this to Miss Tony. I don't believe, have you seen these before? All right, give Miss Tony a minute. She gets to see them first.
Okay.
And we're just gonna let her have a minute to look at it, and then we'll cross the bridge next. Donna, do you prefer that we just do these as one packet? Okay, and I'm gonna keep it, and I'll scan them, so that we have to transfer.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so would you like those to be a part of me making my decision on this case?
Yes, sir, because the police officers at the scene did not measure his skid marks.
That's all right, that's all right. Don't make any statements at this point. So, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go ahead and say that this packet of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 8.5 by 11 photographs are going to be marked and tendered as Defense Exhibit 1 as a packet. Okay, so there's no objection, which means I will now be using these and making my final decision. For record purposes, I'm handing them to the witness, and you may ask the witness questions about those documents at this time, or those photographs, excuse me.
Do you see how the skid marks end up in my lane?
I do.
You see your truck in my lane.
I do.
I stopped and saw my way.
Just slow down, just slow down.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I stopped at that stop sign and I looked both ways and I didn't see you coming because you were traveling at such a high rate of speed. You came around the corner after I'd already pulled out and I jumped the curb to keep from hitting you. And then you hit me in the bed of my truck so hard that it knocked me into a tree. I don't believe 40 miles an hour would have done the damage that it done, especially breaking tire rod ends and stuff. Do you? Do you think 40 miles an hour wreck would have caused all that damage and left skid marks that long? You know it's perjury.
I would kind of agree because it was a downhill slope and
You skidded right into my lane and hit me.
that was after the fact that I had slammed on brakes and my ABS broke, so I couldn't control where I was
So
going.
it was your fault because you skidded into my lane and hit me, correct? If you would have been driving at a normal rate of speed, this wreck never would have occurred. First thing you said to me when you got out of the truck was, "Oh, I shouldn't have been driving so fast."
Objection, Your Honor. He's making statements and not questioning the witness.
I agree, and.
I wasn't finished.
Well, I was already about to stop you, so now you really gotta listen to me, okay?
Yes, sir.
You are making statements. What I'm going to do is, since I can't seem to get you to stop making statements, I'm gonna tell you that whatever statement he makes, you're gonna hear it as a question, right? So if he says, you were driving too fast, then you're gonna take that as, were you driving too fast? Because I can't get him to ask questions, he only makes statements. Does that make sense, Mr. Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if he makes a statement, you take a deep breath, you count to 10, and you hear it as a question, and then you answer it as if it was a question, not a statement, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, ask it again, or make your statement again, or do whatever you need to do next.
Okay, sir, what was one of the first things you said to me whenever you ran up to my truck?
I don't recall.
Okay, well, I do. But, I don't guess I have no further questions.
Okay, are you sure? I just want to make sure, because I'm about to go to the next, so,
I'm sure.
okay. All right, well, I'm going to say that you said you don't have any, I followed up with you, you confirmed you don't have any, you may redirect.
After you saw Mr. Cheshire stop at the stop sign and saw him pull out, did you make any maneuvers in an effort to avoid the accident?
I did.
What kind of maneuvers?
Well, my first reaction was to hit the brakes, but my truck was messed up and we don't have ABS on it. We had the part on order at the time and it had been shipped, but when I hit the brakes and I tried to steer, the brakes locked up and I couldn't steer around or anywhere. So I just slid.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, recross, Mr. Cheshire. Do you want to ask any more questions?
You slid where? Across the yellow line, the center line of the highway, and hit my truck. Is that where you slid to?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Oh, may he step down?
We're finished.
All right. Young man, you may step down and return to your seat. May he be released from his subpoena? Do y'all need him?
I think we're done.
Okay. All right, you may just leave those right there. In fact, actually, they'll just hand them to me. All right, you may stay or go as you prefer. If you wish to stay, you can certainly stay and sit out there in the gallery. If you wish to go, that's completely your decision. So, okay. Ms. Tony, the floor is yours.
Your Honor, may I have a moment to look for
Yes.
officer paper?
She's supposed to be on her way.
Yeah, that's fine. We're off record, everybody.
Here's.
Ms. Tony.
The state calls Sergeant Misty Piper. You raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Can you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Sergeant Misty Piper.
How are you employed?
I work for the City of Griffin Police Department.
How long have you been employed there?
Roughly 6 years.
Are you post-certified?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
In the course of your employment, do you investigate the causes of accidents?
I do.
Approximately how many accidents have you investigated in your time at Griffin?
A couple of hundred.
And were you employed at the City of Griffin on May 26, 2023?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And you were on duty that day
I was.
in uniform with a badge,
Yes, ma'am.
in a marked patrol vehicle,
Yes, ma'am.
and patrolling in Spalding County, Georgia?
Yes, ma'am.
On May 26, 2023, did you investigate an accident on Camp Northern Road and Grass Street in Griffin?
I did.
And is Camp Northern Road a public roadway in Spalding County?
Yes, ma'am.
How'd you learn about the accident?
I was dispatched there. They advised there had been an accident on Camp Northern. When I arrived there, I made contact with driver 1 and driver 2 in both vehicles.
Did you interview both drivers?
I did.
And did you inspect both vehicles in the surrounding area?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did Mr. Cheshire tell you happened in the accident? I'm sorry, what did the defendant, Mr. Cheshire, tell you happened in the
He
accident?
stated that driver 2 was speeding, and that's why he struck the vehicle. I tried to explain to him that because he was coming to the stop sign on Grave Street, he had the duty he had to yield to the oncoming traffic. He failed to yield, so that's why he was at fault.
Would you mind stepping down to Exhibit A and just showing the court where the accident happened and the directions of the two vehicles?
So vehicle 1, which was driven by Mr. Cheshire, was coming,
I need you to take one step that way.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So he was traveling this way at the stop sign on Gray. Vehicle 2 was traveling this way on Camp Northern. So vehicle 1 failed to yield and turned into the oncoming traffic of vehicle 2.
You can step back up and stand, thank you.
That's speculation, isn't it?
All right, there's an objection for speculation. That is overruled. You may certainly explore that when it's your turn to cross-examine.
After interviewing both drivers and inspecting both vehicles in the surrounding area, did you make a determination of who caused the accident?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what was that determination?
Mr. Cheshire had caused the accident by failing to yield on the stop sign right there on Gray Street.
And did his statement that Mr. Robinson was speeding change your determination that Mr. Cheshire was at fault?
No, ma'am, because he still came into oncoming traffic.
Which of the two drivers had the right of way?
Driver 2 had the right of way.
Did everything that you observed that day occur in Spalding County?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Cheshire, you may ask the witness any questions that you may have.
Did you see me not yield at the stop sign? How did you make this determination that I didn't stop at the stop sign?
Okay, so you stated you were at the stop sign. However, if you come into the traffic of a vehicle that has the right of way, then you fail to yield to oncoming traffic. Vehicle 2 had the right of way.
Vehicle 2 may have, but Vehicle 2 didn't have the right to be running 70 and a 35. And I couldn't see Vehicle 2 because they were around a curve. I stopped at the stop sign, I saw my way clear. And when I pulled out, here he come barreling over the hill.
Okay, you're going to interpret that as a question, not a statement, and answer it to the best of your abilities.
I did stop.
I understand that, sir, but you still have to yield to oncoming traffic. If you're stopped, then you have to yield to the oncoming traffic. I don't know what vehicle 2's speed was, and neither do you.
No, and
However,
you
you
didn't
have
even
to-
measure
Your
this.
Honor.
She gets to finish her answer, but then you can ask the question. Just
If you
wait.
fail to yield to oncoming traffic when they have the right of way, you are at fault.
Now ask your question.
Okay, well, when you can't see the oncoming traffic because they're traveling so fast and they're around a curve and a hill, and, wouldn't it be common practice to measure his skid marks to see how fast he was going? Because nobody done that.
Sir,
He
you
was
were,
running 70, I had already jumped the curb and was in my lane when he hit me. He skidded into my lane.
you were cited for failing to yield to oncoming traffic, and that is what you done.
No, I did yield. I stopped, completely stopped. You're mistaken.
Objection argument.
Yeah, that's so wrong. I mean, sorry, that's the stand. Ask your next question.
Well, I want to know why the skid marks weren't measured to determine his speed.
Well, ask her that then.
I'm
You didn't
asking-
ask her that. You made a statement, and then you made 3 more statements, and then that was lost. So if you want specific answers, you need to ask very specific
Okay,
questions.
why didn't you investigate the scene properly?
I did. You
measured
failed
the
to
skid
yield to
Hold on,
mark.
you
oncoming.
asked her, hold on, you asked her the question, she gets to answer it. I told you, sometimes people get excited, but you've got to let her answer the question. Go ahead.
I did, sir. You failed to yield to oncoming traffic.
You measured the skid marks to
No, sir, I did
determine his
not.
speed? No, you did not. That's sloppy police work, isn't it?
No, sir, it's not. You failed to yield to oncoming traffic,
No, I didn't.
and that's what you were cited for.
You're mistaken.
Okay, that's asked and answered. Move on to your next topic.
I've got no more questions for her. She can't tell the truth.
Okay, that's enough of that. Hey, that's enough of that.
Yes, sir.
I am going to be making the decisions as to which witnesses are truthful and which are not, as to which are mistaken and which are accurate, and your opinion of theirs is irrelevant to me.
Okay.
If I need to tell you that again, we're going to have a much more difficult conversation. Okay? You keep your opinions to yourself and you ask questions. Do you have any more? Take a deep breath. Okay? I know you're frustrated, but it's important. This is the most important moment you've had. Do you take a deep breath? Do you have any more questions for this witness before I pivot back to Ms. Tony?
Just one. Have you seen his driving record? Does he have past speeding tickets and such?
No, sir, that's
Yeah,
irrelevant
that's-
to the,
Okay, you said no.
Sorry.
That's right. Okay, well, the objection's sustained. The answer is no, so move on to the next.
I ain't got no more questions for
Okay, redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, do you have from your notes any type of estimated speed of driver 2?
no, sir, I don't.
Because he asked that question and then he asked 4 more questions, and I was kind of curious as to the answer to that.
From my recollection from the scene, he did have skid marks, but they were not long. So, I mean, I'm sure he probably did slam on brakes when he saw Mr. Cheshire. But no, I didn't measure the skid marks.
Okay, that was my only question.
her. Did you see the picture of the skid?
Hold on, Nick. We're going to do this my way, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I jumped in, Miss Tony, as I asked questions, you get to redirect now, and then you'll get to recross. So we're gonna do this in a very orderly way.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, now you may ask your question.
Did you see the pictures of the skid marks that I took?
No,
His truck on my side of the
No, they're
road?
up here, she's not seen them.
Can't you see them?
Yes. I'm handing them to her for record.
My
purposes.
truck was completely in my
I
lane.
gave you that last doc, exhibit B is a state's exhibit. That
Okay.
packet in your hand, the 7 pictures, is defense exhibit 1. So if you'll separate out state's exhibit B and just use that packet of 7 pictures. That's what he wants you to refer to. All right, go ahead.
I just,
She has the 7 pictures. If you want to ask her a question about any one of them specifically, you can at this time.
do you see his truck completely in my lane?
I see where it looks like he
He
tried to
skid.
dodge you, and he almost did.
No, ma'am, he skidded into my lane. That he was on the other side of the road. The skid marks started on his side and moved completely into my lane.
Which he had to apply the brakes when he saw you failing to yield to oncoming traffic.
So if I go out and just skid into somebody and hit them, because I'm running 70 miles an hour, that would be their fault.
That's not what I'm saying. However, what I am saying is when you try to avoid a traffic accident, you may go into the other lane, which looks like what he was doing. That's why he applied the brake so hard, was trying to keep from hitting you, failing to yield to his oncoming traffic.
He was speeding and he skidded into my lane is what actually happened, and then he hit the bed of my truck. He wouldn't have hit the back of my truck. He would have hit the front of my truck if I'd have been in his lane. Correct?
No, sir. That is not correct. You could have been
He would have
pulling
had to
out.
been off in the
Hold on,
grass. to
she
hit
has
the
the right,
front of my
she
truck.
has the right to explain her answer.
If you were pulling out from the stop sign and he saw you and he applied the brakes, then he may have skidded into your lane. I really don't understand what it is you're trying to ask me.
He didn't have his vehicle under control, did he?
I have no idea about that, sir. I was
He
not
speeding.
there.
I know. That's why I don't understand why you're even up there.
Because you failed to yield to oncoming traffic.
All right, any other questions?
That's it.
Okay, because we're retreading old ground here. If you have new ground, I'll let you tread it, but other than that, I'm gonna stop. All right, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, we got a little mixed up there. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, subject to rebuttal, the state rests.
All right, may she be released?
Yes.
And, all right, may she be released from her subpoena?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're free to stay or go, she says. Okay, so, Mr. Cheshire, when we were on break, waiting for Sergeant Piper to arrive, we were all just kind of here and sitting off record, and you had asked me, very briefly, about your options to call witnesses. And we're gonna put this on the record now, that you'd asked, if you were able to ask Mr. Robinson any questions. The short answer is that, I'll take note that Mr. Robinson is still here. He is present in the courtroom. He is a witness who has testified, and although I did release him from his subpoena, as I learned in my habeas hearing, if you don't leave after your witness testimony is complete, you are subject to recall. So you may call him if you wish for that limited, like, we're not gonna retread the whole thing, but if you have a very limited set of questions to ask him, I will allow you to recall him.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, if you'll step back up here to the podium, to the seat. And again, Mr. Robinson, this is not a fresh start. This is going to be a very limited surgical question. I'll remind you that you're still under oath. And Ms. Tony may have some follow-up. So I'll remind you that this is for new territory only. You may ask your question.
Mr. Robinson, have you ever had any speeding tickets?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained, don't answer that. That is not part of this case. So the driver's history or criminal's history of someone is not part of the statute that I am to decide. So I just need you to hear me say that, like, your driver's history is just as irrelevant as his driver's history. And if Miss Tony she wouldn't do this, but if she had you up on the stand and she asked you if you had any prior citations, I would stop her and I would not allow her to ask you that question, and I'm not gonna allow you to ask him that question. Don't answer that question. Ask your next question.
I was just trying to establish some repetitive behavior.
You're not in trouble. It's my job to it's my job to run this courtroom, and that's the rules. So, all right, you may ask your next question.
Have you ever been at fault in an accident, Mr. Robinson?
No, sir.
Never have.
No, sir.
No more questions.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You missed it. And as he's finished his testimony now, I do not anticipate him being recalled again. So, Mr. Robinson, you're clear at this point from being recalled. All right. Mr. Cheshire, as I have told you previously, and there is no jury present, you have the right to testify if you wish and make statements. So far, you've been asking questions, and I need you to know that the things that you've stated so far are not evidence. If you wish to testify, I'm going to have you come up here and take the witness seat. You're already under oath, and you will be able to testify to tell me whatever you want me to know. Once you are completed with that testimony, Ms. Tony will be allowed to cross-examine you, and to the extent the rules allow, you will be required to answer her questions. Do you understand that you have that right to testify and offer other evidence?
Yes, sir.
You also have the right to remain silent, and if you remain silent, I will not hold that against you at all. I'm required to tell you that there's no scenario where your silence is held against you in any way whatsoever. But if you do testify, you will be cross-examined like any other witness. Do you have any questions about this choice that you're facing right now that I can answer for you?
Just trying to decide if it would be to my benefit, which way would be.
Well, take a minute and think about it, and if you have a question for me, I'm happy to answer it.
Unless she wants me to ask me something.
Well, that's not how it works. In civil cases, that's how it works, but not in criminal. In criminal, the decision of whether or not to testify is 100% completely and utterly yours. She can't call you as a witness. I will never encourage you to testify. I'll never discourage you to testify. I will just simply advise you of your rights and options, and then you will choose for yourself.
Okay.
So, does that help?
Yes, sir, and I think you've heard my side of it. And I don't see any reason for me to take a stand.
Okay. Then I'm going to put, do you have any other witnesses you wish to call?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, then if you're not going to testify and you don't have any other witnesses, I will say that you're resting, as in you're finished. Okay. So, Ms. Tony, he did present evidence through the use of a witness. So if you have any rebuttal you wish to present to the court at this time, you do have that right. Do you have any rebuttal that you wish to present?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Therefore, the evidence is closed. Ms. Tony, you have the right to open and conclude. Do you want to go first, last, or both?
I'll go last.
Okay. Mr. Cheshire, take a moment, get your thoughts organized, and I want you to tell me in just a minute or two why I should find you not guilty. Go ahead. Take a minute, get your brain, get all your thoughts sorted out, and then tell me that.
The reason I feel I'm not guilty is I was on my side of the road trying to avoid the accident, and he skidded onto my side of the road and hit the back of my truck. I had already jumped the curb and was in the grass trying to keep from him hitting me. I didn't want anybody getting hurt.
Okay. And I see
guess
what
that's
you're
all.
saying here as far as the skid marks go. Okay. Anything else you want me to know before I pivot to Ms. Tony?
No, sir, I don't think so.
I believe, and I can't get you. Ms. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, it is undisputed that Mr. Sheffer stopped at the stop sign on Gruff Street. No one has alleged that he didn't stop. He did in fact stop. But when Mr. Robinson was driving on Camp Northern Road, he had the right of way. And Mr. Sheffer had a duty to yield that right of way as he pulled away from the stop sign onto Camp Northern Road. And here, he did not do that. OCGA 40-6-72 states that every driver of a vehicle approaching a stop sign shall stop at the stop sign. Here, he did that. After stopping, the driver shall yield the right-of-way to any vehicle in the intersection or approaching on another roadway that constitutes an immediate hazard. Here, Mr. Robinson's vehicle was clearly an immediate hazard because when Mr. Cheshire pulled out from the stop sign, the two vehicles impacted one another. The fact that Mr. Cheshire's rear of his vehicle was hit is only evidence of how far across the road he made it before Mr. Robinson's vehicle struck him. And the issue in the case, this is not a comparative negligence kind of case or civil case. The question is, did Mr. Cheshire fail to yield the right-of-way? And here, he clearly failed to do so. The fact that he's accusing Mr. Robinson of speeding is sort of a red herring, and there's really been no evidence that he was going at an unreasonably high rate of speed under the circumstances. So we would ask that you find Mr. Cheshire guilty.
All right. All right, the evidence is closed. Closing arguments are complete. Can I please have the verdict form? Okay, so the decision for me to make is whether or not Mr. Cheshire, beyond a reasonable doubt, failed to yield at an intersection with an accident. As Ms. Tony said, I have official code of Georgia annotated 40-6-72 up here in front of me, which pertinent part reads, and each element must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, that every driver of a vehicle approaching a stop sign shall stop at a clearly marked line before entering the crosswalk. After stopping, the driver shall yield right away to any vehicle in the intersection or approaching on another roadway so closely as to constitute an immediate hazard during the time which the driver is moving across the intersection. So the elements that must be proven is that Mr. Cheshire was the driver of a vehicle, which has been proven, that he approached a stop sign, which has been proven, and that he stopped at that stop sign. So far, all those items are proved, and Mr. Cheshire did all of those appropriately. After stopping, the evidence is that Mr. Cheshire, driving south on Graff Street, pulled across North Country, and North Country,
Camp North.
Camp Northern. So sorry, I was trying to say County Line Road. Camp Northern Road. He was heading northbound out of the city park, going down that hill by the city pool. I find that although it is clear that Mr. Robinson was operating at a pretty decent speed, I think Mr. Cheshire is correct about saying that he believes that it was faster than 40. Looking at the skid marks and having tried a whole bunch of these cases, even with the anti-brake system out, it's still a pretty decent strip of rubber that was left on the road. So the thing that I looked at was I stopped and said, okay, if this was a civil case, it would be comparative negligence. But under the criminal side of it, it's a strict liability case. It's a switch. It's an on or an off. It's not a dial. And the statute does not in any way whatsoever address whether or not the vehicle that was coming on was speeding or not. It just says that you are required to yield to vehicles approaching that would be an immediate hazard. And so I find that in the strict language of the statute, there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Cheshire failed to yield, and that Mr. Robinson's vehicle was an immediate hazard, and that, a pretty decent accident occurred, and there's some pretty decent skid marks. They look like they're about 100 feet in my book. So, anyway, I find that all of the elements are met. But Mr. Cheshire, I did want to just say to you that, I did stop and look at several of the cases because I thought your question was appropriate. And I did research it, but that's for civil cases only where you're determining comparative or apportionment and you're trying to figure out who is more at fault. But that is not the way the criminal law reads. And therefore, the proof beyond a reasonable doubt has been carried by the state, and I do find you guilty of failure to yield with an accident. As I have found you guilty, it is now my obligation to sentence. I'll hear from the state and then the defense. Anything?
I think it's 3. What's the incident?
The incident.
23? I think it's 3 and 3. $200 plus the add-on.
I've got it right here.
Here's the educated guess.
What was the incident again?
May 26, 2023.
Yes, 300 even. So it was close. The previous one was 300. So these are 300 even. So Mr. Cheshire, the offer beforehand was a fine of 303. Given the bench trial and the fact that there is at least it's at least reasonable for you to have thought that was the standard. It's just the civil standard. I'm not going to I'm not gonna go where I would have gone normally. I'm actually gonna reduce what I'm gonna do back down to what they offered prior to trial. So, it's a $300 fine. Do you have those funds today? Okay, then I am going to be placing you on probation. Do y'all have a final disposition? I got them back in the office, if you don't.
I didn't bring,
No, that's fine, I'll get it.
for
All right, Mr. Cheshire, as I said, I found you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Failure to yield with an accident is my obligation to sentence you. I asked you before we went off record if you had the funds, the $300 to pay your fine in full today. You do not. Therefore, I will be sentencing you accordingly. And as I said earlier, I'm not going to sentence you where I normally sentence. I'm reducing my sentence back down to what they would have offered. And so I'm just letting you know that this is not what I normally do after a trial, but I think this isn't appropriate in this situation. All right, so Ronnie Cheshire on 23 TK 4020 from May 26, 2023, count 1, failure to yield with an accident. I have found you guilty. It is 12 months of probation and $300 fine. I will delay the start of your probation by 30 days to allow you to pay your fine in full and not be on probation. That's called our 30 by 30 program. You will pay $30 as a program participation fee for that. If you pay $330, your case will close with no probation conditions. 31 days from now, if your case is still open, your probation will begin automatically, at which point you will be required. You may work off your fine with community service work, but you will be required to show your valid license to sentence enforcement, have no alcohol, illegal drugs, or hemp products to be tested for those. Fourth Amendment waiver, $50 per month supervision fee, $25 intake fee. This will begin consecutive to any current sentence you may have, and it'll still terminate the moment you've satisfied your obligations to the court. You have 30 days from today if you wish to appeal my decision. You have 6 months from today if you wish to use your habeas rights. And habeas, again, is that weird old law where you can sue Spalding County civilly to challenge this conviction. Do you have any questions for me, Mr. Cheshire, before you and I, let me mark this here. Do you have any other questions before you and I part ways?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, Mr. Cheshire, you did a good job representing yourself, but these are the tough decisions that I get paid to make. So if you'll please go with Mr. Richards out, and Ms. Smith, if you don't mind stepping up to the podium here.
Sir, I hope you feel better, sir. You did a good job. It's good to see you.
And Mr. Cheshire, I'm going to scan in your pictures here and give them to you before you leave.
Thank you, sir.